Welcome to Speak English Now podcast. Learn real English through real conversations.
Hello everyone. I hope you are having a wonderful day. Today we have a very special episode for you. Do you feel stuck in English? Do you study every day but feel like nothing is changing? Do you understand English but cannot speak it? If you said yes to any of these questions, this episode is for you. Today we talk about why you feel stuck and how to break free. Do not worry. You are not alone. Every English learner feels this way sometimes. Even advanced learners. Even me. Even your teacher. Feeling stuck is normal. But staying stuck is a choice. Today we help you make the right choice. Let us begin. Person A says, I have a question for you. Person B says, go ahead. I am listening. Person A says, do you feel like you are not improving in English? Person B says, yes. Every single day. I study but nothing changes. Person A says, I know that feeling. It hurts, does it not? Person B says, it really does. I feel like giving up sometimes. Person A says, do not give up. Your English is coming. Person B says, how do you know? Person A says, because I have been there. And I got out. Now let me ask you something. Person B says, okay. Person A says, how long have you been learning English? Person B says, about 2 years. Maybe more. Person A says, and do you feel confident when you speak? Person B says, not at all. I freeze when someone talks to me. Person A says, that is very common. Do you know why? Person B says, because I am not good enough? Person A says, no. That is not the reason. Person B says, then why? Person A says, because you are trying to be perfect. Person B says, what is wrong with being perfect? Person A says, perfect does not exist. Perfect stops you from speaking. Person B says, I never thought about it that way. Person A says, most learners do not. That is why they stay stuck. Let me explain more. Person B says, please do. Person A says, when you try to speak perfect English, your brain gets scared. Person B says, scared of what? Person A says, scared of making mistakes. Scared of looking foolish. Person B says, that is exactly how I feel. Person A says, and because your brain is scared, it stops you from speaking. Person B says, so my brain is protecting me? Person A says, yes. But that protection is hurting your progress. Person B says, what should I do instead? Person A says, allow yourself to make mistakes. Person B says, that sounds scary. Person A says, it is. But it works. Listen to this sentence carefully. Repeat after me. I allow myself to make mistakes. I allow myself to make mistakes. I allow myself to make mistakes. Person B says, I allow myself to make mistakes. Person A says, how did that feel? Person B says, strange. But also a little free. Person A says, that freedom is the first step to breaking free. Now let us talk about another reason you feel stuck. Person B says, okay. Tell me. Person A says, you are studying the wrong things. Person B says, what do you mean? Person A says, do you study grammar rules every day? Person B says, yes. I love grammar. Person A says, grammar is important. But too much grammar makes you slow. Person B says, why? Person A says, because when you speak, you do not have time to think about rules. Person B says, that is true. I always think about grammar when I speak. Person A says, and what happens when you think about grammar? Person B says, I speak very slowly. Or I do not speak at all. Person A says, exactly. Your brain is busy with rules, not with words. Person B says, so what should I study instead? Person A says, study phrases. Study sentences. Study real conversations. Person B says, like what? Person A says, like this. Do not study the word go. Person B says, what should I study? Person A says, study I want to go. Study I need to go. Study let us go. Person B says, so whole sentences instead of single words? Person A says, yes. That is how babies learn. That is how natives learn. Person B says, that makes so much sense. Person A says, let me give you another example. Person B says, please do. Person A says, do not study the word eat. Person B says, okay. Person A says, study I want to eat. Study I am eating. Study let us eat together. Person B says, so my brain remembers the whole situation. Person A says, exactly. Your brain loves patterns, not rules. Now let me tell you the third reason you feel stuck. Person B says, I am ready. Person A says, you are not listening enough. Person B says, but I listen to podcasts every day. Person A says, that is good. But are you listening the right way? Person B says, what is the right way? Person A says, passive listening is not enough. You need active listening. Person B says, what is the difference? Person A says, passive listening is when you listen while doing other things. Person B says, like listening while driving or cleaning? Person A says, yes. That is helpful. But active listening is more powerful. Person B says, what is active listening? Person A says, active listening is when you listen and repeat. Listen and copy. Person B says, like we are doing right now? Person A says, yes. Exactly like this. When you repeat, your mouth learns. When you copy, your ears learn. When you do both, your English grows. Person B says, so I should repeat everything I hear? Person A says, not everything. But repeat important sentences every day. Person B says, how many sentences? Person A says, start with 5 sentences a day. Person B says, only 5? Person A says, yes. But say them out loud 10 times each. Person B says, that is 50 repetitions. Person A says, yes. And after 1 week, you will feel the difference. Person B says, that does not sound too hard. Person A says, it is not hard. But you must be consistent. Now let me tell you the most important reason you feel stuck. Person B says, what is it? Person A says, you are waiting for the perfect moment. Person B says, what do you mean? Person A says, you are waiting until you feel ready. You are waiting until you are perfect. Person B says, is that bad? Person A says, yes. Because that moment never comes. Person B says, never? Person A says, never. You will never feel completely ready. Person B says, so what should I do? Person A says, speak now. Speak today. Speak badly if you have to. Person B says, speak badly? Person A says, yes. Bad English is better than no English. Person B says, that is a powerful way to think. Person A says, think about this. A baby does not wait to be perfect. Person B says, no, a baby just tries. Person A says, exactly. A baby falls many times. But the baby never gives up. Person B says, and then one day the baby walks. Person A says, yes. And one day you will speak fluently. But only if you try. Now let us practice some sentences that will help you break free. Repeat after me. I am not perfect and that is okay. I am not perfect and that is okay. I am not perfect and that is okay. I make mistakes and I learn from them. I make mistakes and I learn from them. I make mistakes and I learn from them. My English is getting better every day. My English is getting better every day. My English is getting better every day. I do not need to be perfect. I just need to try. I do not need to be perfect. I just need to try. I do not need to be perfect. I just need to try. Every small step brings me closer to my goal. Every small step brings me closer to my goal. Every small step brings me closer to my goal. I am proud of myself for trying. I am proud of myself for trying. I am proud of myself for trying. Now let me share a short story with you. Person B says, I love stories. Person A says, there was a student named Ravi. Person B says, what happened to Ravi? Person A says, Ravi studied English. For 3 years, he knew many words. He knew grammar rules. Person B says, sounds like me. Person A says, but Ravi could not speak. Every time someone spoke to him, his mind went blank. Person B says, that is exactly what happens to me. Person A says, Ravi felt stuck. He wanted to give up. He felt like a failure. Person B says, what did Ravi do? Person A says, one day Ravi met an old teacher. The teacher said something simple. Person B says, what did the teacher say? Person A says, the teacher said, Ravi, you know enough English. Now you must speak it. Person B says, but Ravi was scared. Person A says, yes, he was. But he decided to try. He started speaking to himself every morning. Person B says, what did he say? Person A says, he said simple things. Good morning. I am tired. I want coffee. Person B says, that is very simple. Person A says, yes. But he did it every day. Then he started speaking to his dog. Person B says, to his dog? Person A says, yes. The dog never judged him. Then he started speaking to his friend. Person B says, was his friend nice? Person A says, yes. The friend also made mistakes. They practiced together. Person B says, what happened after some months? Person A says, Ravi was not perfect. But he was no longer stuck. He could speak. He could express himself. Person B says, so the secret was just starting? Person A says, yes. The secret is always starting. Start small. Start ugly. Just start. Now let us practice more sentences for your daily motivation. Repeat after me. I am better today than I was yesterday. I am better today than I was yesterday. I am better today than I was yesterday. Every mistake I make is a lesson I learn. Every mistake I make is a lesson I learn. Every mistake I make is a lesson I learn. I will speak English today even if I am scared. I will speak English today even if I am scared. I will speak English today even if I am scared. My English does not need to be perfect. It needs to be real. My English does not need to be perfect. It needs to be real. My English does not need to be perfect. It needs to be real. I respect myself for trying. I respect myself for trying. I respect myself for trying. Today is the day I break free. Today is the day I break free. Today is the day I break free. Now let us talk about small daily habits that will change your English. Person B says, please tell me. Person A says, habit number 1. Listen to English for 10 minutes every morning. Person B says, that is easy. Person A says, but you must listen actively. Repeat what you hear. Person B says, okay. I can do that. Person A says, habit number 2. Speak to yourself for 5 minutes every night. Person B says, what do I say? Person A says, say how your day was. I woke up late. I ate rice for lunch. I am tired. Person B says, simple sentences? Person A says, yes. Simple is powerful. Person B says, what is habit number 3? Person A says, habit number 3. Learn 5 new sentences every week. Not words. Sentences. Person B says, 5 sentences a week is nothing. Person A says, that is 260 sentences a year. Person B says, wow. That is a lot. Person A says, yes. Small daily actions create big results. Now let us do a quick review of the most important ideas from today. Repeat after me. Feeling stuck is normal. But staying stuck is a choice. Feeling stuck is normal. But staying stuck is a choice. Feeling stuck is normal. But staying stuck is a choice. Do not wait to be perfect. Speak now. Do not wait to be perfect. Speak now. Do not wait to be perfect. Speak now. Study sentences, not just grammar rules. Study sentences, not just grammar rules. Study sentences, not just grammar rules. Listen actively and repeat out loud. Listen actively and repeat out loud. Listen actively and repeat out loud. Start small. Be consistent. Never give up. Start small. Be consistent. Never give up. Start small. Be consistent. Never give up. Now let me ask you one final question. Person B says, what is it? Person A says, are you ready to break free? Person B says, yes. I think I am. Person A says, do not think. No. You are ready right now. Person B says, how do you know? Person A says, because you are here. You are listening. You are trying. That is enough. Person B says, that means a lot. Thank you. Person A says, now here is your challenge for today. Person B says, tell me. Person A says, stand in front of a mirror. Look at yourself. Say these 3 sentences out loud. Person B says, which sentences? Person A says, number 1. I am learning English and I am proud of myself. Person B says, I am learning English and I am proud of myself. Person A says, number 2. I make mistakes and that is how I grow. Person B says, I make mistakes and that is how I grow. Person A says, number 3. I will speak English today no matter what. Person B says, I will speak English today no matter what. Person A says, how did that feel? Person B says, it felt a little strange but also powerful. Person A says, do that every morning for 30 days? Your English will change. Person B says, I promise I will try. Person A says, that is all I ask. Just try. Now let us end today's episode with some final words of encouragement. You are not bad at English. You are not stupid. You are not slow. You are learning a new language. That is one of the hardest things a human can do. Be kind to yourself. Celebrate small wins. You understood this episode. That is a win. You repeated sentences. That is a win. You did not give up. That is the biggest win. Remember this always. Your English does not define your intelligence. Your English does not define your worth. Your English is simply a tool you are learning to use. And every day, you are using it better than the day before. Do not compare yourself to others. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday. If you are better today than you were yesterday, you are winning. Keep listening to this podcast every day. Keep repeating the sentences. Keep speaking even when it feels hard. Your fluency is coming. Your confidence is coming. Your breakthrough is coming. But only if you do not give up. Only if you keep going. Only if you speak English now. Thank you for spending your time with Speak English Now podcast. If this episode helped you, please share it with one friend who feels stuck in English. Subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Leave a review if you want to support us. Until next time, remember this one thing. You are not stuck. You are just growing. And growth takes time. Be patient with yourself. Keep practicing. Keep believing. And always, always speak English now. Goodbye and take care.